During the recent game between the Indiana Fever and the Seattle Storm, tensions between the two coaches flared as the match drew to a close. The clash between Fever's coach Christy Sides and Storm's coach Noel Quinn was sparked by Indiana's decision to keep its starters on the court while Seattle had already made substitutions. As the Storm struggled to close the gap, Fever rookie Caitlin Clark was caught on the Jumbotron at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, appearing to tell the Storm players to stop crying amid the heated sideline exchange between Sides and Quinn. The Fever's victory over the Storm has generated significant buzz. Seattle, favored by most betting odds and having defeated the Fever in their last two matchups, was expected to dominate. However, the game's unexpected outcome brought its own drama. Recent footage has painted Seattle's coach Noel Quinn in a negative light, raising questions about sportsmanship. Outkick highlighted this lack of professionalism, contributing to ongoing issues with league viewership. Caitlin Clark's growing impact on the league remains a hot topic. In a revealing video, Caitlin Clark is seen being shoved by a Seattle Storm player while returning to her team. This physical altercation adds to the intensity of the game. Clark, who leads the WNBA in assists, seems to be stirring up quite a reaction. Despite claims that she's too weak or incapable, Clark's impressive stats speak for themselves. The controversy surrounding Coach Quinn's frustration over Indiana's use of starters reflects an unwritten rule of sportsmanship, but it's a matter of perspective. The footage also shows Quinn confronting Sides aggressively, an action that appears petty and unprofessional. This behavior reflects poorly on Quinn and, by extension, the Seattle Storm. Coaches often set the tone for their teams, and Quinn's actions seem to indicate a lack of readiness to handle the league's level of competition. Another clip from the game underscores the severity of Seattle's loss. Their unexpected defeat raises questions about emotional maturity and sportsmanship. It's hard to overlook the fact that emotions are running high and reactions are less than ideal. The latest video shows Caitlin Clark expressing her frustrations from the sidelines, highlighting the emotional stakes. Seattle's inability to manage their emotions and accept Clark's achievements is evident. Additionally, a video has surfaced where Noel Quinn refers to herself as a gangster from LA during a press conference, adding another layer to the controversy. Clark's impressive performance, including breaking records and setting new benchmarks, contrasts sharply with the unprofessional reactions from some players and coaches. Despite having seasoned coaches like Quinn, Cheryl Reeve, and Becky Hammon in the league, their responses seem marked by envy rather than sportsmanship. The situation with the Seattle Storm highlights a broader issue of sportsmanship in the league. Clark's performance and the Fever's rise as a formidable playoff contender make it clear that Caitlin Clark is a rising star. The lack of grace from Seattle in handling their defeat is disappointing. Instead of reflecting on their performance, they appear to be more focused on Clark's achievements and the perceived disrespect. Ultimately, the Indiana Fever, led by Clark, is making a significant impact in the WNBA. Despite a rough start, the Fever is now a team no one wants to face in the playoffs. It's disheartening to see poor sportsmanship overshadowing such an exciting development in the league. Let's dive into what went down. Seattle's coach, Noel Quinn, definitely crossed the line. His reaction was loud and, frankly, out of touch. Many are pointing to race as a factor, suggesting that Quinn's frustration stemmed from seeing Caitlin Clark, a white player, dominate the game. It's clear that there's a lot of underlying tension in the league. The narrative shifted quickly from, "she's overrated," to, "wow, she's incredible." Caitlin Clark is definitely shaking things up in the WNBA. Watching the game on Sunday, it was surprising to see how much things have changed. There's a lot of dissatisfaction, and ironically, it's the league's focus on stars like Clark that's drawing significant media attention and driving TV deals. Angel Reese had a solid game recently, but there were some questionable stats involved. Regardless, the Rookie of the Year talk surrounding her shows just how dynamic this league is, even if professionalism seems to be lacking at times. The tension during the game was partly due to Indiana Fever's coach Christy Sides keeping her starters in while Seattle had already substituted in their bench. Quinn was visibly frustrated with this decision. However, after a brief exchange of handshakes, it seemed like they cleared the air. In her post-game press conference, Quinn expressed her respect for sides and described their conversation as a discussion about gamesmanship. "I have a lot of respect for Christie," Quinn said. "We were just engaged in a lively discussion about gamesmanship, that's all there was to it." Sides hasn't commented publicly, but she did apologize to the Storm's coaching staff after the game, suggesting it was more of a misunderstanding. Despite the drama, it was a standout day for Caitlin Clark. She ended the game with 23 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. Kelsey Mitchell also shone with 27 points, and Lexi Hull added 22 points, including 6 of 7 from three-point range. Clark spoke about her challenges and the support she receives from her teammates and family, saying, "I don't really get to stand up for myself. I have a great support system and great teammates. I've faced so much, including threats and attacks, but I try to stay strong for them." Meanwhile, the Sky are struggling, with a 4-14 record after their recent loss. Derek Amy's disinterest has been noticeable. Even during the All-Star game. The team's morale seems to be fading, and it's evident they're having a tough time this season. Caitlin Clark's performance continues to highlight her as a rising star in the WNBA. Her on-court success and the way she handles off-court controversies reflect her growing influence in the league. However, her rise also underscores the need for better professionalism and sportsmanship among coaches and players. On a quiet night, Lieutenant Brad Thompson was patrolling a deserted road in his squad car. His mind was filled with distorted ideas of society, formed by years of prejudice and misinformation. As he was driving, he saw a black sedan parked on the side of the road. Without hesitation, he decided to approach the vehicle, not knowing that its passenger was an undercover FBI agent. Brad pulled up behind the sedan and flashed his patrol car's headlights. He went out, hand for the box, a habit born of long years of doubt. As he approached the driver's window, he saw a man sitting quietly in the driver's seat. Marcus Johnson, the FBI agent, was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. He took a deep breath, preparing for the interaction. He knew from experience that these encounters could be unpredictable, especially given the color of his skin. Brad came to the window, his position rigid and commanding. Tapping the window with her flashlight, she motioned for Marcus to sit down. As the window rolled down, Brad's demeanor changed subtly, his eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of Marcus. "License and registration," Brad asked, his tone harsh and hostile. Marcus obeyed, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. He handed her his papers, keeping a calm expression despite the rising tension. Brad examined the documents carefully, his doubts showing on his frown. "Where are you going tonight?" he asked, his voice filled with implicit accusation. "Coming off work, officer," Marcus replied matter-of-factly. Brad's next question clearly reveals his bias. "And where exactly are you from? It doesn't look like you're from here." The atmosphere became more tense as Marcus recognized the implication behind Brad's words. He took a moment to compose himself before answering firmly, "I was born and raised in this country, officer." "Is there a problem with my letters?" Brad's jaw clenched at Marcus' answer. The conversation grew quickly, Brad's prejudice met with a dignified resistance from Marcus. The stage has been set for a confrontation that exposes the deep problems in the police force and challenges the views of both men. Brad's irritation grows noticeably as Marcus holds the ground. Trying to reassert his authority, Brad moved closer to the car window, his voice low and menacing. "Look, I don't like your attitude. Why don't you get out of the vehicle?" Marcus, recognizing the potential danger of the situation, decided to change tactics. He took a deep breath and spoke calmly, "Officer, before you climb out the situation, I want to share something with you." Brad paused, taken aback by the sudden response. Marcus continues in his strong but emotional voice, "When I was 10 years old, my father was pulled over by a police officer for a broken tail light. What should have been a routine search ended with my father in handcuffs, face on the floor, all because the officer assumed he was looking for a gun, when all he was looking for was his gun. The personal story seemed to rub off on Brad's tough exterior. He relaxed a little, but confusion and defensiveness still clouded his features. As Marcus spoke, memories flooded Brad's mind. He remembered his childhood home, where racial slurs were common like, please, and, thank you. He remembered his father, a respected man in his small town, who taught him that some people were inherently dangerous and untrustworthy. These flashbacks clashed with Marcus' words, creating a cognitive dissonance that Brad struggled to reconcile. He finds himself torn between his deeply held beliefs and the humanity of the man who came before him. Marcus, sensing a change in Brad's attitude, continued. As an officer, I became an FBI agent to change the system from the inside. Every day I work to protect all citizens, regardless of race. But encounters like this remind me of how far we still have to go. Brad's eyes widened at the mention of the FBI. He stood up, suddenly unsure of his position in the conversation. The FBI? Do you expect me to believe you? That's the truth, Marcus replied calmly. And it is also true that the responsibility of the police is to protect and serve all members of the community, not just a few. The conversation had turned into a fierce debate about the prejudices and the responsibility of the police. Brad found himself on the defensive, his old beliefs challenged by Marcus' words and his own conflicting emotions. As the tension grew, Brad felt the pressure of Marcus' truths weighing on him. He struggled to keep his composure, caught between training, education and the undeniable reality before him. As Brad and Marcus continued their tense meeting on the deserted road, Sarah Thompson sat anxiously at home. The clock on the wall indicated that Brad was very late getting home from work. The restless man covered his face as he walked across the living room, cell phone clutched in his hand. Sarah called Brad's number for the third time that evening. Once again, the message went straight to voicemail. His anxiety was intensifying. It wasn't like Brad was out of touch for that long, especially on a night shift. Unable to shake her worry, Sarah decided to act. He opened his contact list and landed on a name he hadn't used in months, David Shunn, a lawyer friend with connections in the law enforcement community. Her thumb hovered over the message icon for a moment before she began to type, David, I'm worried about Brad. He's late for his shift and he's not answering his phone.